World War II began in 1939. It involved many nations. The two opposing military alliances were the Allied powers and the Axis powers. The Axis powers consisted of Germany, Japan, and Italy, while the Allied powers were the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, America, and in the beginning of the war, France. Throughout the war, the American Army, headed by General Douglas MacArthur, had been fighting many battles in the Pacific. During this time, life was very hard for many families in America.
I really know that my mother was very, very upset and cried for a very long time when my father, your great-grandfather, was called to service in the military.
Soldiers were given ranks in the Army, and each rank served a different duty.
He was a private to a sergeant.
And these ranks can be shown on his badges, right?
Yes, on the badges that we see on the pictures that I have of my father, you see the badge for the 6th Army and the badge that signifies him as a sergeant, with the other aspect of being a technician. So his duties appear to be along the line of organization of supplies for the rebuilding of Japan, as well as for organizing the discharge of individuals in the 6th Army at that time.
When soldiers were away at war, it was most common for families to communicate to troops by mailing letters. V-mail was a very quick way to deliver the mail to a lot of these soldiers.
We did not receive letters by the use of V-mails, but were just receiving regular letters.
On these postcards, did your father ever mention where he was stationed? Because during 1945 to 1951, General MacArthur stayed in Japan to command the occupation forces and to manage the rebuilding of Japan. Rebuilding in Japan was needed because America dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, one in Hiroshima and the other in Nagasaki. These bombs were dropped by America to force the Japanese to surrender and to bring the war to a quick end.
Yes, as you look closely at these postcards, you see that he was stationed in Kyoto, Japan, which indeed is the headquarters of the 6th Army.
Where was your father stationed at before he went to Japan in 1945? Was he working with Lieutenant General Walter Kruger, commander of the 6th Army?
It appears that is correct, because before he came to Japan, he was first fighting in the Philippines, and then with the 6th Army, he was fighting in New Britain, in New Guinea, and in Leyte. These are the islands leading up to the invasion of Japan.
Okay, so he was on these islands before the bombs were dropped?
That's right. He was making his way towards the general island of Japan, and essentially was fighting with the 6th Army. And actually, the 6th Army was the major attacking force before they got to Japan.
Okay.
How about after August 15th, 1945, when the bombs were dropped? Did your family ever get notified that your father was coming home? Therefore, was it after Victory Day in Japan when the Japanese surrendered, or before?
Well, definitely it was after August 15th, 1945.
Okay, and how was your family notified that he was coming home? Did he ever make any communication?
In the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a phone call, and it was from my father.
Many soldiers had been away from their family for a very long time. When you realized your dad was finally coming home, how did you feel?
I was so happy, and my mother was still in shock. Couldn't believe what was happening.
And when your dad did come home, did you know of any wounds that he got when he was away? Because there were approximately 670,000 American soldiers wounded during this war.
Yes, he was wounded twice, once in his arm and once in his right leg. I don't know if this happened at the same time.
Many other people faced injuries and unfortunately death during this war. The atomic bombs dropped on Japanese cities Hiroshima and Nagasaki caused thousands of people to be killed instantly, and many later due to radiation. These are just some of the many reasons why this topic is extremely controversial. During the war, women had to suffer the double shift, working both at home and in the workforce. The image of the woman's role changed during the war and led to a future with women having a more significant role in the workforce as well as in the military. How did your mother handle this situation when your father was away at war? And overall, how do these events affect you and your family?
My father was in the service in the Pacific for approximately 4 years, the best that I can remember. And during that time, there was very little income, so my mother had to take care of two of us with very little money, and it was a time that everything was rationed.